It is such an absolute thrill for me to be joined by the one and only Kathryn Hall. We're right off 29, and if you've ever driven by and seen this really cool bunny rabbit out front, that would be Hall. What's the significance of that big bunny that we see?
Yeah, that was done by this artist named Lawrence Argent. And the reason it's a bunny is that when my kids were very little and we were on my family's vineyard, which was up in Mendocino, my dad was a grower, and we would always walk every day. We'd walk through the vineyards, and when they were too little to walk, I would carry one and the other one down here. And we would sing this song of little bunny foo-foo hopping through the vineyard. I changed it from forest to vineyard. So anyway, we always had this game of looking for little bunnies that were in the vineyards, because bunnies are everywhere in a vineyard. So I thought it would be really fun to have our own bunny foo-foo,
A lot of times we drink a bottle of wine and we see the label and we see the name and we don't really think about the people behind the bottle.
Also, when I drink wine, I like to know the person behind the wine too. I mean, if you're going to have a special bottle of wine, part of it is knowing its heritage, and where it comes from, and a lot of heart and soul goes into this wine, and so I'm glad to be able to talk about it. I grew up in this world of wine. I mean, I was destined to do this. My dad grew grapes for other wineries, and I always wanted to actually make the wine. My husband and I came here to Napa in 1995 and started looking around for property. And Cabernet is what I wanted to make. There are other wines that we make now that I really love, but Cabernet was what I grew up with. Cabernet and Zinfandel, actually. We started looking around for vineyards. I'm very vineyard-centric. I mean, I think maybe it's partly being a farmer's daughter, but I also just know from a winemaking perspective, you can't make great wine unless you have a great vineyard. And so that was the number one focus. So we found, after a while, what I think is one of the finest vineyards in the valley, and I just feel very blessed to live on it and to make wine from it. Our Kathryn Hall comes from there. We call it Sacre Vineyard, which is in Rutherford, and it's about at 750 feet elevation. And we just started sort of growing little by little, but then I had a hiatus. I was offered an opportunity to go to Austria as U.S. ambassador to Austria. It was wonderful for me, but I'll tell you, the best thing was for my family. My kids just flourish there, and their horizon is so much broader because of the opportunity to live overseas for, actually it was 4 years that we were there. I served under two presidents. I served under President Clinton and under President Bush too. So it was wonderful. It's when you're an ambassador, you really are, it's a nonpartisan position. When you are overseas, nobody cares if you're a Republican or Democrat. And by the way, they don't want to know, because they want to know what America thinks. It was a really fabulous opportunity. Changed my palate a bit for wine. Austrian wine, which I love, the Grüne Veltliner is one of my favorite white wines. It's reflected, I think, now in the way we make our Chardonnay and our Sauvignon Blanc. It sort of has grown, and so now we have two more brands. We started a wine brand for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, which is called Walt. My maiden name is Walt. And then we recently started a third brand, which is a Zinfandel, Baca, okay. B-A-C-A, which means berry in Latin. And this brand is led by my daughter, the same little girl who used to run through the vineyards looking for bunny foo-foo with me many, many years ago. I've always felt this was very personal. I mean, for me, drinking wine is very personal. I mean, every happy memory I have has something to do with a bottle of wine. Maybe it's part of just growing up or in this world. But I mean, I can't think of a baptism, a christening, a Thanksgiving, any holiday where wine was not at the table. And even when I was a kid, what my parents did, this is probably not PC, but anyway, this is my world, the kids had children's wine. So the adults would have this, right?
Okay, children's wine, I dig this.
Yeah, but the children, what we would do is we'd get the same glass, and then there'd be a little bit of Cabernet in the bottom, or Zinfandel. Anyway, a little bit of red wine at the bottom, and then my parents would fill it up with water. right? And a little bit of sugar. But anyway, it made us feel like, we were in this world. And also, I think it's a healthy thing, because then when you grow up, you sort of moderation comes with enjoying something that's really part of your world already.
I can't help but think about some of the successes that you have. Obviously, 2011 Wine Spectator picked you as the #2 wine in the world, which would make that the #1 Cabernet, because I think at that time it was a Pinot was the one. So you were the #1 Cabernet in the world in 2011. It was for your 2008 Kathryn Hall name. What was that like?
It was thrilling. It was thrilling. You can't make a wine with the idea, I want a good score on this wine. You have to make the best wine you know how to do, and that's really so much part of our philosophy is take the terroir and take this vintage that you're given, and then reflect it in the best way you can. There's no formula, and so and our winemaking team will say that same thing. We just our approach is not formulaic. It just make this wine the best it can be for this vintage.
You feel like that maybe that consistency, people know what they're going to get. You think that's helped attribute to all the success that you've reached?
Yeah, I think so. I think you have to earn the respect for your wines year after year. I mean, I'd like to say that just because we make a good wine one year, people are going to come back. And maybe that works for 2 years. Maybe they loved it last year, so they're going to buy it this year. But I think you have to make it fresh for yourself.
Well, we're sitting down here today because we have a new release of your 2015 Kathryn Hall. And how cool is it that I'm going to try the Kathryn Hall with Kathryn Hall?
Cheers. Yeah, cheers. I love this. We've started in the last 4 or 5 years, taking this on the road after we release it. So we release it first here at the winery, and then we go on the road. If folks are listening or watching you and we haven't been to your city, let us know, because maybe we'll come wherever you are.
Organic, yes. How important is it for you to be organic?
I think there's no excuse to not be sustainable in the way you grow your grapes and you make your wine. I mean, we are the custodians of this earth. And do it for that alone, and beyond that, do it because I think it's the right thing to do. I think that the real benefit to organic farming is probably not the fact that it's chemical free, but it is, and that's great, but it's the fact that you have to spend more time in the vineyard.
People ask me all the time, they're saying, oh my gosh, I'm seeing all this replanting. Is that because the grapes were all ruined in the fires? And I'm going, no.
The real factor that's important to know about vineyards is that they stop fires. Vineyards don't burn. So they were a natural barrier for many of our properties. Now we sustained damage, no question about that. Smoke taint is absolutely an issue that everyone in the valley, with regard to Cabernet. Pinot Noir was already in, but Cabernet, it's an issue. We had homes that were destroyed. We had people on our team who lost their homes. There's a lot of beautiful trees that were burned down, but that actually didn't affect the vines.
If there is a young budding winemaker out there and she's maybe not going to get to meet you, but do you have any advice?
Make sure you love it. I think the next is be prepared to really work hard. Get in there earlier, to stay later, to work harder. I think women are generally used to that in no matter what role we are. Do your homework. You won't regret it. Be the smartest, hardworking, and most of all, most prepared person in the room. And then find a place that lets your creativity soar, and that you can make a mistake, and that's okay. Because if I'm in a job and I feel I have to always succeed, I'm never going to be creative, because you're never going to try anything new. So find yourself an environment where it's comfortable for you to fail, and where your successes will be recognized. And part of that, I think, too, is just being around people who do good work. I mean, people who don't try hard, who don't strive for excellence, are not necessarily going to recognize that in you.
This is such a treat for me. Thank you so much for taking the time and to share your wine and your stories and your legacy, a little bit about it with me. Do you have a cheers or a toast, anything fun that you say?
In Hawaii, so we've been going there on vacations, and I love Hawaii, we say Okoli Maluna.
Okoli Maluna.
Yay!
What does that mean?
Bottoms up.
Bottoms up. Oh, I love it. I always learn something new.